The Vedic civilization was a complex and varied structure that arose in the ancient India between 1500 to 600 BCE. It was distinguished by the practice of the Vedic religion and the composition of the Vedas. Veda comes from the word Vid, which means to know. The Vedas are composed in archaic or Vedic Sanskrit, forming the foundation of Hinduism as we know it today. We read about the Vedic period in two phases, Early Vedic Period and the Later Vedic Period. Today, we will read extensively about the Early Vedic Period, and like all our other videos, we are going to read about this topic in parts for an easier understanding. The sources, advent of Aryans, geography, religion, society, polity, economy, and conflicts. Hello friends, you're watching Freeconomics. Lots of effort goes into making of these videos. If you find them useful, please consider subscribing to our channel. That will really help us and support us in creating better research content for you guys. Now without any further ado, let's get directly into today's topic. Sources. Primary source of study of the early Vedic period is Rigveda. Hence, this period is also called as Rigvedic period. Dates back to 1500 BCE and 1000 BCE. It is important to note that all the other Vedas and Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads were created and compiled in the later Vedic period. The Rigveda. The Rigveda is oldest among all the Vedas and was likely compiled over several centuries. Passed orally as Shruti or what is heard and Smriti or what is remembered from teacher to the disciples, that makes it eternal or Nitya in nature. The Rigveda consists of 1028 hymns or suktas divided into 10 mandalas or manuals. Manuals 2 to 9 contains the oldest of the hymns, while the first and the 10th mandala seem to be a later addition. The Rigveda provides an insight into the political, social, economic and religious life of the people of the Rigvedic India. It also includes Vishwamitra's famous Gayatri mantra and Purush Sukta's prayer or the story of the primal man. The Rigvedic priest was known as Hotri. These hymns were composed in the praise of various deities like Agni, Indra, Soma, and offer an insight into the early Vedic society's religious belief, rituals, and way of life. The Rigveda in its oral tradition was inscribed in UNESCO's Memory of the World Register in 2007, holding a status of intangible cultural heritage from India. Advent of Aryans. The Indo-Aryans were a group of Indo-European speaking nomadic tribes who migrated into the Indian soil in around 1500 BCE. They are distinct from the indigenous Harappans and played a central role in laying the foundation of the Vedic civilization. Many scholars believe that they entered India through the Khyber Pass in the northwest. Likely not through a single invasion, but rather they came in waves. The Indo-Aryans first settled in the region known as Sapta Sindhu. They chose this place because of the fertile lands, abundant pasture for cattle, water sources suitable for the semi-nomadic lifestyle. Rivers were central to both subsistence and ritual life. Geography. The region of Sapta Sindhu is mentioned in the Rigveda as the sacred land of Aryans. It is basically the land of the 7 rivers, that is Sindhu or Indus, Vitasta or Jhelum, Asikni or Chenab, Parushini or Ravi, Vipas or Beas, Shatudri or Satluj, and Saraswati, possibly today's Ghagar-Hakra river. Present-day Punjab, Haryana, parts of Pakistan, Western UP constitutes to be the Aryan land. It is important to note that these were the former Harappan lands as well. So this was a proper invasion by the external forces, and it seems that the indigenous people were forced to move towards the south of the Indian lands, forming the base of the Dravidian or the tribal culture which were yet to come. Religion and belief. Polytheistic religion based on the nature's worship. Deities were personified as natural forces. Indra was personified as rain and war god and was the most mentioned deity. Agni or fire, Soma or divine drink, Varna or cosmic order, Surya or sun, Usha or dawn were the other mentioned gods. There is no mention of temple or idol worship. Religion was conducted via yags or the fire rituals. Rigvedic priests or Hotris recited hymns from the Rigveda. Society. The society had a tribal structure with clans or janas as the primary social and political unit. People relied heavily on cattle rearing and agriculture for sustenance. It was an egalitarian society, more or less, especially in the early stages of the period. While social hierarchy existed, it was not rigid. Individuals were not strictly bound by birth to their social roles. Families were headed by a patriarch or kulapa. The Varna system with Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras were beginning to take place, though it was not as rigid as in the later Vedic period. While the society was heavily patriarchal, women held some important positions within the family and society. They enjoyed relatively higher status than in the later Vedic period. They participated in rituals and could compose hymns like Lopamudra and Ghosha. Polity. In the early Vedic period, polity was primarily tribal with a monarchical setup. The basic social and the political unit of the society was the family or kula, with several families coming together forming a grama or village, several villages coming together and forming a tribe or jana. The Rajan was the head of the jana, elected by the people and responsible for the protection and governance. But the Rajan's power was not absolute in nature. They were kept under check by the assemblies like Sabha or the council of elders and important individuals of the society, and Samiti or a popular assembly representing the wider tribal community. The other important assemblies were Vedata, which is possibly adorned with the religious and military capacity, and Gana, also an assembly whose exact role is not clear yet. There is a mention of several administrative officials like Purohit, the priest who acted as a key advisor to the Rajan, the Sanani, who was the chief of the army, Gramani, the head of the grams or the villages, Vrajapati, or the in charge of the pastures, Spasa, or the spy who gathered the information for the Rajan. Regarding the taxation, we know that the income for the Rajan and all the other officials primarily came from the war booty and the bali which was voluntarily offered to the Rajan. Economy. The early Vedic economy was primarily pastoral, and while agriculture was practiced, it was secondary to animal husbandry. Let's explore their economy further. Cattle as wealth. Cattle, particularly cows, were the primary form of wealth and measure of prosperity. The Rigvedic Aryans were skilled in cattle rearing, and their livelihood depended heavily on these animals. Cattle raids or gavishti. A war or conflict, particularly the one fought over the cows, it literally translates to the search for the cows. Cows were sacred and central to the economy. Agriculture. Agriculture was the prominent secondary activity. The techniques were relatively primitive with the wooden plows and well irrigation. Barley or yava was a staple crop. Other than barley, wheat or godhuma, rice or vrihi, pulses, legumes and possibly even melons were the part of the agricultural produce. The other economic activities were war booty, barter system. Barter system is the primary method of trade, with cattle serving as a medium of exchange. Crafts like carpentry, weaving and chariot making were also prevalent. Land ownership. There was a communal ownership of land, with clans collectively utilizing the resources. A concept of private land ownership was not yet established. Limitation to the trade. Coins were yet to be introduced as a form of currency. Trade was limited and primarily conducted through barter. Evidences also suggest a limited maritime trade due to the lack of large vessels. Conflicts. Frequent references to the wars like the Battle of the Ten Kings or Dasrajna fought on the Parushni River, or the mention of the Dasas and the Dasyus in the Rigveda, possibly referring to the local non-Aryan groups, or maybe to the former Harappan people of the later Indus Valley Civilization, who were later forced to migrate to the south of India. Historians are still fighting tooth and nail to find the possible demise of Indus, the rise of the Vedas, and find the crazy that was in between. When India says Vasudeva Kutumbakam, it is not just a phrase, it is who we are. From the Rigveda to the Zend-Avesta, from the Sapta Sindhu to the ancient Iran, our roots run deep and together. Aryans, Iranians, Kassites, Mitannis, we were never strangers, just the branches of the same tree shaped by time and geography. History does not divide us. It humbles us. It reminds us that we share more than we differ. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we will read about the later Vedic period and a brief comparison between the two. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please like the video, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. We will see you in the next video. Till then, keep watching Freeconomics.